Today I'm going to show you how to change the rear axle seal that is just behind the wheel on a Ford 8.8 rear end. I know this is a Chevrolet, it's an S10, however it does have an 8.8 rear end in it from a Ford Explorer, so the process would be the same since I'm working on that rear end. So the first thing I'm going to do is jack the truck up. I'm going to put my jack stands just here and get the wheels off. So I will do that and come back. As you can see, I've got my jack stands underneath the leaf spring mounts, and I've got the weight of the truck supported with that. What I've also done that you might notice is place the jack underneath the shock mount over here and jacked up the right side of the rear end in an effort to make all the fluid slosh over to this side, because I only need to change the right seal and I don't want to drain all the fluid out of the differential if I don't have to, because it takes about 3 bottles of that stuff to fill it up and it's about $20 a bottle, so it's pretty expensive. The seal only costs $5 and you've got to buy $60 worth of fluid to do the change. So I have jacked up the right hand side of it in an effort to lose as little fluid as possible. Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is crack open this case, put an oil drain catch pan down there, crack the case open, and let the fluid come out. So to get the fluid out, you just remove the bolts around the outer pan here. I removed all of them except this one and this one here, and I just kind of loosened this one a few turns and then gave this a little bit of a pull to allow the fluid to come out. You don't want to take all the bolts off and have this whole thing fly off at one time, otherwise you're just going to end up with a huge mess of oil all over your driveway or garage floor or wherever you're working on the truck at. Nobody wants that. So that's why I do it this way. Kind of gives you a lot better control as to where that oil is going and how quickly it's coming out. As you can see, I'm just giving it a little bit of a pull, it's draining right out. So I'm going to continue to get that out till it stops dripping, and then I'll go ahead and pull this cover off. Okay, so once you've got your pan off, the next thing you want to do is rotate your wheels, which is kind of a pain in the ass if you didn't notice. Okay, I've got to get it 180 degrees from that. Well, not quite. What you've got to do is get this out, this little bolt out here, and then slide this pin out. And once that pin's out, you can remove your C-clips. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two items first, then I'll come back and show you how to get the C-clip out. So, once you've removed those two parts, the next thing you've got to do is rotate this around where you can see up inside of there. These are the ends of the two axles right here. These two cylindrical pieces between this little S-shaped thing. So what you're going to have to do now is remove your wheel and then take your brake caliper off and then push the axle in this way, and that C-clip will be just inside of here. You can't quite see it right now. So that's what I'm going to do now, is take off the rear wheel, take the brake caliper off, and push the axle in this way. Actually, if you can look right up in there, after taking off my wheel, I was able actually to push the axle in this way because the lug nuts go through the brake disc, but they're allowed to slide in and out of the brake disc. So if you just push the axle this way, you don't have to remove the brake caliper and all that stuff to get that C-clip out. As you can see right there, the C-clip's getting ready to fall out. I don't want it to fall into my vat of oil here, so I'm going to put down the camera and make sure I don't drop that C-clip in the oil. It's getting ready to fall out already, you can see it. So I'm just going to rotate this assembly around until it falls out into my hand. And then, all you've got to do at that point is, well, I guess actually you are going to have to remove the brake caliper to do this point. Once you get that C-clip out, you're going to have to pull the axle out of the rear end, and that is going to require you getting everything out of the way. So I guess you could go ahead and remove that brake caliper and the brake disc at this point. So just a quick heads up, if you don't know how to get the brake caliper off, it's really easy. There's only 2 bolts to hold it in here, 10mm. They'll be right there on the caliper. Just loosen those, pull them both out, the caliper will slide right off, then your brake rotor will slide right off as well. Another heads up is I had a bunch of gunk all up in here, all over my emergency brake pads. You can still see some of it on my normal brake pads, and there was a whole bunch of crap all up in here. You want to clean all that stuff out really good. Make sure you get some good rags, wipe it down really good. You can see the results of that right there. And probably even some brake parts cleaner, take it a little bit further. Spray it down really well, get everything nice and clean, because you don't want that gear oil all up in your brakes for obvious reasons. Now to get this axle out is pretty simple. You just pull it out. See? Just pull it straight out. You're going to need 2 hands for this, probably. You don't want to make sure you don't drop your axle or anything, but just pull it out. Give it a good wipe so you don't get oil all over the place. And there's the culprit of all of this mess right there, is that seal. So now take a screwdriver or whatever and pop that seal out. You're going to put your new seal in. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So here's the procedure for removing the old seal. Get a nice big screwdriver, flathead. Don't put it behind the gear here, or behind the bearings. You don't want to start messing that all up. But just get it just behind that seal, and then start prying it. Might take a little bit of persuasion, but after a bit of prying, it should come out. There we go, it's starting to come. Maybe if you have a nice long handle screwdriver, this would work better. But as you can see, it's starting to come out. I'm going to continue to work my way around, get that seal out of there. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down and do this, but you get the idea. Just keep working your way around there, prying it little by little, and eventually you'll get it all out. So I've got my old seal out. The obvious next step is to put the new seal back in. So I've got my seal here, and what I'm going to do to get this in here is take a little hammer and just start to tap my way around the edges very, very lightly, because you do not want to warp this in any way, otherwise it's not going to make a good seal. And actually that's what had happened to the seal that I just took out of it, is I got it a little bit in a hurry and messed it up a little bit putting it in, and that was the end of it. It just was leaking from there. So you've got to make sure that you get that in nice and straight. The best way to do it would be, obviously, if you had a socket that was that big, and you could just use the socket to place over that and just tap it in there. Unfortunately, I do not have a socket that large. I've got one almost that big, but that is not going to work because it's going to put too much pressure on this inner lip here and probably bend it in. You want it to go just around the outside edge and just barely fit inside of the tubing here. So I'm going to grab a hammer and start lightly tapping this into place. Okay, so this is what it looks like after it's reinstalled. Like I said, all I did was took a hammer and very lightly tapped the outside edge and made my way around, slowly but surely, lightly tapping all the way around until I got it flush with this piece here. Now you see that it actually has to be pushed in a little further than flush. Now I said I didn't have a socket to do that, so what I did was I got really smart and I used the old seal to place over it and tap with the hammer, and once again lightly tap, make your way all the way around. That way you don't mangle up this new seal. And there you have it. The new seal is in. You've got to reinstall your axle, reinstall your Cclip, put everything back together in the rear end, put your pan back on, and then fill her back up with fluid. That's it, really. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe. I've got a lot of other videos on how to do a lot of other things to my wife's car, which is a 2006 Honda Civic, and to my Corvette as well. So once again, thank you for watching.